This episode is brought to you by ChiefAIOfficer.com. Most companies know AI can slash costs and free up teams, but they get stuck on the first step. ChiefAIOfficer.com can identify your highest value use cases, train your people, and build the workflows that do the work for you. Book your free private 15-minute executive briefing by going to ChiefAIOfficer.com and scheduling a call. You'll leave with a clear, no jargon roadmap for your goals. Now, enjoy the show. And a quick note before we start this episode. Starting August 29th through October 29th, we're actually taking our AI executive immersion on the road. This is a free, half-day, in-person, no-fluff workshop for executives of lower middle market and above-sized companies. You'll leave with a 90-day plan, a simple AI policy and guardrails, and a personal AI stack that gives you hours back every week. If you'd like to bring your executive team at no cost, go to ChiefAIOfficer.com/roadshow to see the dates and locations where we'll be. Seats are limited to keep it hands-on. Hopefully this is an opportunity for us to meet in person and for you to learn exactly how we're teaching busy executives to take advantage of AI in their role and across their companies. Now, let's start the episode. Welcome to Using AI at Work. I'm your host, Chris Daigle. Each week, we'll be learning how today's business owners, entrepreneurs, and ambitious professionals are getting more done with smart use of tomorrow's tech. Let's get started. Hi, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Using AI at Work. My name is Chris Daigle. I'm the host of the podcast, and today we have as a guest Peter Swimm, and we'll be talking about Peter and his company Toilville and very interesting topics that we just discussed in the pre-conversation. So, Peter, before we get started, if you don't mind, kind of share a little bit of background about what the journey's been like to get you here today.
Sure. I've been in tech for 25 years, and that's a very circuitous path. Like, I've worked in data centers, I work customer service, I work for Fortune 500 companies and Fortune 5 companies, and total of 5 companies, companies. And the one connected thread in all that is really this concept of conversational AI. Like I'm constantly in my career, I've been looking at ways to use computers to work smarter, not harder, and, avoid anti-grind set kind of like tech, traps, and like making smart choices. And so it's very interesting time to be where I am now. I worked at Microsoft on their Copilot products, helping design tooling for people used to like talking to chatbots and building applications, and LLMs are like a whole new different animal. And I slowly start to realize that people don't have access to my experience organizationally, let alone in the industry. And so that's why I started a consultancy called Toilville. And what we do at Toilville is we help people onboard, especially medium, small businesses who don't have the huge army they need to be successful as their dreams. And they're leveraging these technologies to work smarter and faster and harder, and also keeping that level of quality up, and not like, falling victims to all the headlines about, filing legal briefs with Garfield in it or whatever, so.
Yes. So, Peter, you mentioned conversational AI. For the audience who may not be familiar with that term, how would you describe that?
Well, when I describe it, people always start to make a face, because it's like when I call the bank and it doesn't want to push buttons, it wants me to explain my problems. And I think for a long time, it's been very bad, right? Because it's like they tested in studios with people who speak California English, and, it doesn't handle people from other, it doesn't help you when you're on your cell phone on the subway. And, but in the last 4 or 5 years, because of companies like OpenAI and Google and other unicorns out of the valley, the AI technology has gotten sophisticated enough that it's almost good. And being almost good after being awfully bad for so long is such a huge, like, disruptive thing in the industry that people are making all kinds of wild pivots. And people who rely on these products to do their work are kind of stuck in a quandary where they're like, well, I was just focusing on work, and now there's like a chatbot in Word, and how do I use it, and how can I leverage this? And they want me to pay $30 extra per person for it. Why should I do that? So
So I agree with you on the conversational side. It's an area of AI like voice interaction with human and AI. That's something that once that becomes very good, I think
Mm,
it's going to be a big unlock for a lot of businesses in the support side, certainly, but definitely on the sales side. So when you
mm.
say it's not good, how far out do you think we are before conversational AI is indiscernible from a human interaction?
Well, I mean, you see what people are tricked into believing are real online every day. So I hesitate to say like Turing test kind of things.
Yeah.
For me, very good is something I would like let my daughter, who's 11 years old, talk to.
Yeah.
And so I don't let her talk to any of these things, any, technologies online because you need to develop a social sense to guide and
Yes.
shape them because it's very reality disrupting in a way that is like harmful, especially to growing people. I think what is more likely to happen is what our sense of what good is will shift to be more aligned with what they're good at, right? And so like last week I did an experiment. I did nothing but voice chat for a week, my whole business. And it was wild and painful and scary until I realized a certain way to do it. And then
Yes.
I downshifted my expectations. And it was more like, I'm hanging out with a friend and I'm like co-working with them. And I just say, hey, can you make this part better? And it's like, try that. And it was just kind of like a revelation to me because I think people will say like, write me the grapes of wrath, or
Yeah.
they like they want to give these prompts and, California's going crazy over investing in companies that claim to do that. But I think the value is read this paragraph and tell me if it makes this point effectively, right? Or like, does this code operate the job it's supposed to do as effectively as it can, knowing that the real work happens in these other parts of code, so you don't have to work that hard. And like these kind of like as a person who's been a product leader, like to be able to kind of like just walk through scenarios before doing them and
Yes.
saving that time to kind of like, you know, the whole like methodical pace of how LMs have to work well is planning and plotting and, you know, anyone who's like, told a loved one to do a chore, like telling your kid to clean his room or whatever. And if you don't, they'll lawyer their way out of things. And these
Yeah.
LMs will lawyer their way out of things just because they don't know logic or anything. They're just like a pachinko machine based on like cleaning your room goes down these 4 steps. And
Yeah.
if your delivery requires those 4 steps, you're in business. And if not, you're in pain. Right. So once I had that kind of like conception locked in, I came up with a startup idea in like 2 days, and I have an entire APIs mapped out, and I have my research plan, and now I have all these things that like were all my ideas, and but they were like structured in a way very, very quickly that I can see the whole of it and like see like is this a good idea or a bad idea? And I think that's what is the takeaway for AI is not going to make like it's not going to do your work for you. It's not going to do your homework for you. It's going to like allow you to do things like whiteboarding and
Yeah.
like plotting out your novel and like lose those 15 pounds and like and do it in a way that is agnostic of the tools, right? Because everyone wants a life hack, right? And you like, okay, my email's in Word and blah, 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 blah. And this is now unlocks a possibility where you're like, hey, if I wanted to have one website that had my email and my text messages and my LinkedIn post, and you only showed me the ones that were good, and this is what it means to be good, and it's like, oh, okay, apps are dead, right? Like because the whole concept of application is building a better mousetrap, but everyone wants their mousetrap, and having that kind of like ability on your desktop, I think is going to be extremely disruptive for a lot of companies um, whose job is like experience for a little bit, and then they're going to figure out, oh, I can now make a playbook, like, just like watching those shows where they flip houses, you get
Yeah.
ideas to do stuff. So
Yeah.
people who are smart system thinkers are now going to be thought leaders and maybe selling the prompt template and all those other fun things. And the people who are good at doing the research and putting together the bits and pieces are going to be able to like find parts of the process that are repeatable and make it modular and just, build it like we did last time, except for this chunk, which is the new requirement. And
Yeah.
then, you can do 5 projects at once now because you don't have to
Yeah.
you don't have to like figure out like the how and the why of the how and the why, and I think that it, as a culture, we're still kind of wrapping our heads around that. So,
Yeah. There's definitely this kind of like stretch between the old way of thinking and then doing what we call think in AI, where you kind of
mm,
Ethan Mollick concept of cyborg, right? Like where it's
mm,
not like, oh, I'm going to go do AI later. It's like it's just something
mm,
that happens. So this experiment that you did, I'm particularly interested in that because one
mm,
of the things we do is we train and certify non-technical business professionals to be an AI
mm,
expert in their company, right? And part of that is it's a capstone project. It's a deep dive into a particular use case that they can apply in their business.
mm,
And yes, they learn stuff from putting together the final product. But the when I interview people for their certification, the real aha for everybody was I spent 3 days in one thread, right? Like
mm,
they went really down. They weren't like skipping around ADDing in Chat GPT. They were going so deep in it that it was pushing their cognitive
mm,
capabilities because they had to think of new questions, right? Um, and that experiment that you did with only using voice AI for a week is very similar. Like you want to get good at using AI, use AI.
mm.
You want to get good
Yeah.
at conversational AI with would you use Chat GPT?
Um, I used everyone, and I landed on Claude Code.
Okay. And this was for ideation or
No, I am building
oh
product and platform. And
yes.
the reason I'm building product and platforms because I had to, because there's no off the shelf thing to do the way I work.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, and maybe that's because I'm like, you know, I am a product person and a tech person, so I'm at the intersection of two Venn diagrams of
Yeah.
distinctions. But like the thing that really clicked for me, that where it stopped being frustrating, was being able to see a little console on the side, how it
Yes.
was reasoning. And I'm
Yes.
like, whoa, 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 and be able to hit escape and like, no, 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 no. You, when this happens, you do that, right? And then at the end of the conversation, I had to review the conversations. Like, what did we learn, children? And we
Yeah.
came a list of what we learned. And we're like, oh, I got confused when this happened, this one, and I didn't know the environment. So like, okay, now I have to build state. And so I go back because I built chatbots for 20 years. I'm like, okay, I know how to build a state engine. I know it's a website. So now the first 2 days I was building a secretary to take the minutes of my conversation with the bot. And every time we had a new idea that was used more than once, it went into a big hopper and then became a script. And so like now I have a concept of like I call them rubrics and ruses, right? A rubric is our process, how we do it. Our ruse is what we do because the rubric sucks for this scenario, and I have to duct tape something together, right?
Like an edge case or
Yeah, yeah,
variation.
yeah. But every edge case tells us something about the inflexibility of our rubric, right?
Yes.
So at the end of the project, I can look at all the ruses and say, oh, these 3 ruses wouldn't have happened if this one feature was prioritized on my roadmap. And I think
Yes.
like that was like the like my work has now become my research vertical, right? Because every day, I think like especially people in tech, like you get used to, oh, I snooze a notification every time it's this guy, right? Or I snooze when I'm in a meeting and this happens and I don't come back to it because my brain is constantly being inundated by stuff. But now I control the flow of information and I have a schedule. And every time I get to the end of the task, I can say, what's next? And it'll tell me what the next most important thing is. But also, it has checked all my email, it has checked my voicemail, it has made sure my wife's not trying to get a hold of me. Things that, like, okay, this is George Jetson boss
Yeah.
level stuff, and like, okay, I need to drop what I'm doing and do that. And now I don't have to doom scroll, right? Now I don't
Yes.
have to like check my phone every 5 minutes because I know the system is watching, and I know I'm going to take my lunch at 11, and I know I'm going to take my walk at 1 o'clock because the system is instructed to shut down unless there's a fire, right? Like, and so like all of a sudden, like all the metrics of what makes successful things is completely upended, right? Because now I'm in control. I'm in
Yes.
control of my notifications and my lifestyle, and I'm not like pulled 8 ways from Sunday, and which is essential because as a small business owner, my ability to pivot on a dime is my competitive advantage against 500-pound gorillas.
Yeah, absolutely. So, after that experience, and just for clarity for myself and for
Mm,
the listeners, you
sure.
built this simply by speaking back and forth
Hmm.
to AI for a week.
Yeah.
There wasn't. Yeah, okay. Tell me.
Yeah. I did not push. I did not type. I typed yes.
Yeah.
I typed like, so, I basically ended up typing a spec, but like all my specs were very Socratic, right? Like I was just like, what if we did this? Would this make this easier for you to do? I gave you a list of requirements. Please analyze them and see if I made it too complicated, right? Or if I introduce extra steps. And there's other ways to solve it, like use an NPM library, right? Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the first like 3 days, the thing made 3,000 scripts.
Wow.
And that was until I invented my sifting thing,
Yeah.
where where like it will codify a script as a tool if it's useful, right? And so of those 3,000 scripts, there was 200 unique ones, right? And now it's 12 tools that
Nice.
have 5 functions, right? And so like now my little bot has like a little like toolbox that when I say good morning, it knows to check the mail and put on the coffee and, pull in all my notifications and pull the list of things I didn't do yesterday and then analyze it and see if that list is still relevant today. Um, and it's like, and it's completely agnostic except for using Claude API,
Huh.
Claude code. And you can do this with the $100 a month account.
Yeah. It's incredible the price of the
Well,
access.
it's Well, I so I did this study of so they have the consumer API and the market rate API, right? And so I put on market rate API and I did $150 in one day. Uh,
You were cooking. Yeah.
so that $100 thing is a trick and a lie, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone's paying the bill, and it's not. It's probably your data and all that. So
Yeah.
like that's why next week we're gonna start playing with local models because they've been selling us Copilot PCs and Apple Intelligence machines, and guess what? They can run models locally now that are getting pretty good, right? Apple's going to announce Apple Intelligence APIs that you can use in Xcode, so you can use the M4 processor with 32 gigs of RAM, which is not expensive.
Yeah.
You know, I have. That's what I'm talking to you right now. I bought it yesterday,
Yeah.
and I did the benchmarks, and it's acceptable for probably 99% of the population to do work today. And, the only people that are going to probably like scoff at this are like, like you said, data scientists or
Yeah.
multimedia people or people trying to like, prompt generate Casablanca or whatever, so.
Yeah. So, what model do you think you'll be running locally?
I am benchmarking. It's like this whole, like first 5 days were totally like reactive research, right? Like just like this thing is just like ChatGPT is a horrible writer. A horrible
Yeah.
writer. Like I can't stand it. Even using the API, it was bad. That's why I stuck with Anthropic because it was the most. I was able to say, okay, so the thing I used before was Notion, right?
Yeah.
And I was able to put Claude at Notion and to analyze my writing style and tone and make a template that runs every time it goes to write something and then use all the same idiosyncrasies that I write. So when I
Yeah.
write the draft, there's less for me to fix.
Yeah.
Right. And like, and I think that the revelation for me was, oh, this is why Microsoft Copilot and Apple Siri are having such a hard time because they're trying to take a general model and put a general thing on it that works for 99% of the population. Completely impossible unless you give it every single bit of your life, right? And I think like that's a non-starter for a lot of people, right? Like I'm not gonna upload my digital ID
Yeah.
to the Microsoft and the Googles of the world because they don't have a great track record, right?
Yeah.
And I think then, you know, then it comes down to, it's like, oh, okay, so we're just going to carry supercomputers in our pocket, and we're going to need a firewall type system to decide, okay, to answer this question, TurboTax agent, you're going to need 36 bits of information, and you're not going to get a single bit more, you son of a bitch,
Yeah.
And it's just like, cool. So, and there's no VC in the world that's going to fund that company, right? Uh, because we're talking about like a social contract. We're talking,
Yeah. Wow.
we're talking about like, imagine if cookies were made for people, right?
Yeah.
And so, and not for Madison Valley, Madison Avenue and all that. Um, so I'm building that. That's what I'm building at
Huh.
my computer. So, you know,
You'll run it on this lab. You'll be able to do your custom LLM.
on this laptop,
Huh.
and because the dirty secret about most apps, like in the App Store and all that, everything is just the same thing underneath, right? Because they're all just websites, or, like Slack is just a web browser, and Teams is just a web browser. And it's just like, like there's all these things that they did to make the user story possible that I have access to too, right? Like you know, I can go to Twilio and I could get a phone line and a video stream. And the only thing is, like, I'm not a enterprise level systems engineer. So I write my story. I have it generate the code of the hello world. And
Yeah.
then I take the code and I run it through research phase. And I do go through the same things I did in corporate world, where, okay, I'm going to have a legal review. I'm going to have a security review. I'm going to have a technology stack review. I'm going to have an ethics review. And I just run it through all these filters. And when it gets to the point where it makes sense to me, then I will release it, so.
I hope you're enjoying the episode. Did you know that while you're listening to this, competitors are already boosting EBITDA with generative AI? If you're still stuck in pilot mode, margin and market share are leaking every quarter. ChiefAIOfficer.com guides executive teams through the 3 moves they need to be doing: identifying the top AI plays that will lift revenue or slash costs within 90 days, de-risk adoption with team training, airtight governance, and change management best practice, and then building and deploying production-grade AI-powered tools. No extra headcount, full ROI tracking. The results? Operators at scale generative AI cut process costs 22% last year. Let's talk. Claim your free, private 15-minute executive briefing by going to ChiefAIOfficer.com and walk away with a board-ready roadmap. Slots fill fast, so lock yours in. Now, enjoy the rest of the episode. So, will this will be something that you plan on introducing commercially to others?
Yeah, I think, I think the future is open sharing, right? Because the internet was built on open data. It was built on open source libraries. And the value is not being the pioneer that planted a flag on the beach, right? The value is being a systems thinker that can understand what a person's trying to do. So, like, I started out in customer service, tech support, when I was 16 years old.
Yep.
Bill Gates gave the Chicago Public Library a couple $1 million, and they hired a bunch of teens to teach people how to use the internet. And I learned then that people didn't want to use the internet. They wanted to look up baseball scores, right? They wanted to, like, find out what's going on in their hometown. And, like, so the desire to do a thing is not like, and I think tech people have completely forgotten this, is that
Yes.
people use tech not because they like tech, is because they want to solve a problem quicker, right? And if we come to a point where the reason you went to Google for the first time can make an app for you,
Mhm.
like, and I found myself asking questions that were like, search foo, but with my end state in mind. So now I don't have to do search foo for prompting. I can just write, like, I really need to find a plumber to fix my car.
Mhm.
Here's what's going on, right? And then I tell the story, and I tell them where I am, and I tell them, so, like, all the things you would spend an hour looking around on
Yep.
Google, you could just plan out your list of requirements and have it scour, right? And that's so much better than clicking through a bunch of pop-ups and finding things. And I think that is like it's probably the end of apps, right? It's
Yeah.
probably like, because no longer, and now when I say the end of apps, I mean like, right, like Slack versus Teams, and Xbox versus PlayStation, and like it's immaterial, right? What if I could take the video quality from Teams and stick it into the GUI from Slack and then attach it to my Salesforce in a way that had all the features I needed and none of the things I wanted, right? And I think that is probably more aligned with the future. So we're not going to build Salesforce type
Yeah.
management platforms.
Yeah.
We're going to build a single tool that can talk to services and vendors and my data, which I own and never
Yeah.
give out unless it's a suitable business reason.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to figure out some way to monetize that so people have a living and be able to keep doing it and stuff. So
Yeah. So you're suggesting that what the future of apps looks like is, oh, I hate doing this. Hey, wait a minute. Hey, Claude, can you build something that does X, Y, Z, and then blah, blah, blah. And it might ask for an API key or something like that. But once you do that,
yeah,
it's like, sure, here you go. And now I've got an app that I just built for me, maybe somebody else in the office, but maybe nobody else uses it.
well, like, have you looked? Do you know what all the buttons in Excel do?
No.
Right?
Nope.
Like, there's all these things that Excel can do. That's like someone spent 6 months building that button,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
someone spent a good part of their life building that button, and there's probably millions of people who use that button every day. But
I
I
don't
couldn't
need it.
tell you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so then wouldn't it be great if I could talk to Excel Copilot and like I could just tell remove all your buttons and only add them when we need them,
Wow. Yeah.
you know? And I think like that's where like the critical error that Microsoft and all those people are making is they don't understand how now the customization and lowering the 100,000 option problem, all that makes the LLM smarter, right?
Yeah.
Because now the LLM is making 5 decisions at a turn or 2 decisions at a turn versus like picking from a toolbox and doing all this stuff and they're
Interesting.
never. And I think like you have to completely rebuild all these products from the beginning to do what you want. So like I work with like I mentioned, we use Notion because I have a great PMO who does Notion and she is the ninja at Notion. And I have engineers who work in GitHub, right?
Yep.
And then small manager, I'm like, well, now I got to buy everyone a seat in Notion and GitHub, and now I don't because I have a transformation layer on my desktop, and people just work where they work, and so when my PMO creates a project, it puts a project in my planning file, and then it creates the GitHub repo and assigns the tickets to the person, and then people just work how they work, right? However they want to work, and that was kind of the realization to me. I started making schemas like for people.
Yep.
So like, so all my employees have like a little profile of like when you log into a machine and put on the repo, it'll set up the repo how you like it, right? Because now it doesn't matter that they like to do certain things and whatever, because when I commit it, I run
Yeah.
another script to formalize it or do
Yeah.
it in the output style. And this is kind of like how people should work, right? I can hire someone who speaks a language I don't even speak. You know,
Yeah.
I can hire people who, like I have a lot of friends and family that are like in economic dire straits, and they're the smartest people I ever met. And
Yeah.
it's the future. It's going to be rewarding people who are better at being street smart than book smart,
Yeah.
because in this system, having that kind of like intuitiveness and reactivity, it, like the first 3 days were bad of my experiment. The next 3 days was like playing SimCity, right? And and then the fourth or fifth day I was doing my business again. Like I was
Yeah.
actually like where I wasn't aware of the thing, and I was able to like, it's like, oh, I've been, once I like hooked in the ability to like keep an eye on the prize system and the ability to not make 3,000 scripts, I was like, okay. And like there's
Right.
no way, I've been working with office tools for years, and I've been
Yeah.
working for I'm an Apple person, and nothing in the last like 6 years of tech has made me as excited about it as I am now, because I have a 4-month plan where I can realistically fire all my SaaS subscriptions and
Yeah.
just get API access to the services. and I can pay go what I use and
Yep.
not what I use because the service quality is still there, but you know, like there's all kinds of features in these products that I have no use for, right? Like there's so
Which
many
you
people.
pay for regardless. Yeah.
Well, I've worked for companies that have both Teams and Slack, and they
Yeah.
have like Zoom and this, and it's like, why are we adding Zoom meetings to team calendar invites,
Yeah.
and it's just like because the person who's in charge of buying the video thing liked that better, and it's just like and it's too expensive to build a just for us system. And so like everyone's come up with solutions to do that, right? Like Salesforce has the everything platform and
Yeah.
if this or that, has like little connectors and all that. It's just like it's so trivial now to create connectors to do things. Like I built the Notion to my desktop to Slack synchronization tool in 4 hours.
Yeah.
So now, like when my PMO changes the name of the project because of rebranding, it flickers through the system, right? And then every time I write code, there's like a mission statement of the project in there. So like I don't make 3,000 scripts, right? And it knows what tools it has and all that. And it's just like, okay, cool. This is like a viable business, and I'm no longer getting throttled by Claude code every 2 hours because I'm able to like slowly prompt less and less and have it just run a script and wait for things to happen, right? So,
Yeah.
um, I think like there's a really strong possibility that a person could download an app and pay Claude $100 a month for like 5 or 6 months, and then switch back to API access or whatever, and just use it as it's like installing solar panels in your house. Like it's just like a thing that smart people do and instantly get ROI, and it's flexible to the point where their values make them do it, right? So like, you don't want to work with Microsoft because you think they stink. You don't have to work with Microsoft, right? You can now like build the buffer layer between you and your ethics of like thinking Google's gone evil, or you know,
Yeah.
Sam Altman and doesn't know what he's talking about or whatever. Cool. Uh, you pay Sam Altman for 6 months, you never have to talk to him again.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and eventually people are going to give playbooks to start off with zero API LMs. Like the you don't need to write code for everything, right? Like there's like, I just want to journal, or I just
Yeah.
want to do this or that with my life. And like, okay, we'll just structure as much as that stuff you need. And, you know, you go buy a computer and it'll come with most of everything you need, and we'll like just wrap on top of it, right? We'll just use Apple Mail and Apple Calendar and give you the interface on that you want, because email is a solved problem, right? Like it's like, except the only thing that isn't solved is the ability for someone to ruin my day with bad email. and and I think like once we figure out that kind of like really personal, intimate engagement with technology problem, uh, you won't have to buy a computer ever again either, right? Because it just works, right? You don't have to upgrade because unless there's a good reason for you to upgrade because your tooling works, so.
Yeah. Well, Peter, let's shift gears a little bit about your experience with Toilville.
Hmm.
Um, when your founder is your role, when did you start the business?
We're still wet behind the ears. We started last November. It's funny because I left Microsoft, and the day I left Microsoft, Satya Nadella gave himself a $40 million raise, and
Uh-huh.
I was just like, okay, that's how it's gonna be. Like it was just kind of like, okay, I need to help people, right? Because it's like
Good for you.
I don't I don't think tech is gonna help people through to the end of this journey like they should. And
Yeah.
I was seeing a lot of opportunity where people were like being misled or making bets that um, they shouldn't have to make. And people who know their business, right? There's all kinds of people that plumbers and doctors and lawyers, and there are people who are like they want to have a savvy business. They don't want to make unicorn money, and they just have to do life and stuff. And I think there's really lost connection with those kinds of people for the people who make these fools. So.
That's interesting because there's certainly concerns at all strata of the business about how is AI going to impact my workforce. Like, if I got this agent that can do this, do I really need 5 people in that department? Do I need one
Mm,
person? Do I need anybody in that department? Right.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so That's a different perspective, and I like it. Let me ask how your experience, you mentioned your team. Is your team much leaner than it would be without AI? Obvious question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, um, like I have my senior developer, and I have a PMO, and I have me, and I have a designer who helps design the image on our website. Um, but all these people are contractual. Like I would love to give them like money to like mess around and play with me all day.
Yeah.
And we're not there yet. Right.
Yeah.
And, and I think the thing is though, um, I can take their 8 hours a week or 12 hours a week that they give me, and I can make it stretch. I can like, get engagements going. And now we're able to take on like multiple contracts a month. So it changes the game, right? You're not
Yeah.
looking for like the big fish. You're more like, a realtor, or you're more
Yeah.
like a barber, like where, you build up your clientele, and maybe you serve them multiple times, and you create content you can reuse and like do in different ways. And it's just like, it just feels more natural of a business for me than anything I've done in tech, right? Because, I've been through what 4 tech meltdowns and 3 recessions, and it's just like, my entire adult life, the wolf has been at the door. And now I can just like, oh, okay, I have a meeting today in an hour, so I'm just gonna talk and play and do things and like hang out with my daughter. And, like all these things become like a whole different lifestyle.
Yeah.
And, we're reading about, the 669s of the world people, and, and you gotta be a 10x engineer.
Yeah.
And if you can't get this work done in 40 hours a week, you're, what are you doing? Right. Because I think, yeah, it's like exposing a lot of these lies about like crunch and planning and all that. Because now, like, every day I'm doing research. All the work I do is research now. So I don't have to like plan the research study around my work. I can like capture insights about my work and change things every single day. And, and if people don't like it at my company, they can stay on the old version of the work, right? Because my tooling will just like auto convert on the fly. So like, you know, I'm gonna work with people who love Outlook, right? Or I'm gonna work with people who love
Yeah.
this or that, and that is fine now, right? Because I'm hiring them not for like the style of clothes they wear, the way they cut their hair. I like the meat between the ears,
Yeah.
right? And I think that changes a lot of like the way you do things. Like, you know, I talked to my contractor, and he's like, okay, well, I only have 2 hours left this week. I'm like, you did the work I need you to do this week. So either you can play with this stuff or you can go home. Like,
Yeah.
like I'm not, I don't want to pay people by the hour, right? I don't want to like, I want to pay people enough time to like
Yeah.
do all the work I need done in a month. And if you do it at 3 in the morning or you do it in Singapore or whatever, like who cares, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I like the work that comes out of you and all that. And I think that is like an amazing shift in paradigm where, like you're not, you know, everyone has work life and personal life and all that. And now it really can be like cake and eat it too, right? And I think a lot of people are super uncomfortable with that, especially like at sea level up, right? Because,
They don't understand. It doesn't
well,
equate.
also,
They're computers.
and they've had, AI agents for years. It's called the smartest 25 people on the planet working
Yeah.
under you.
Yeah.
you know, and like if you gave, there's probably millions of Americans that if you gave them the intelligence and data that like uh Sindor from Google has every morning, or Mark Zuckerberg's have every morning, they'll be 10 times more successful than those people, right? Because the intuitiveness to put, 2 pennies together, it is not rare, right?
Yeah.
And having access to machinery is so. And, I think this is a really like, I've, I was very skeptical of AI for many years. And, I've kind of like an aha moment has flicked in my brain since I started the consultancy, where it's just like, okay, you know, all technology, you know, and you can say this, about ethics and stuff, like guns don't kill people, people kill people. But it's kind of true. It's a force multiplier of the human experience, right? And, if you build your life, you know, you know, while you wasted time watching movies, I studied the blade, right? and and you know, if you live righteously and do things right, you can give yourself access to the tools, and you can have your cake and eat it too, and not have to like put on a tie and go to downtown Seattle every
Yeah.
day. You know, so
So tell me about the types of clients. Like, what's the customer profile that you're servicing?
um, I've been working a lot with you know, every vertical really, you know, like healthcare, small businesses, a lot of companies, especially since COVID, have switched to like remote models, and
Sure.
that has changed their whole approach to like teamwork and team building, and it's made tools like Teams and Slack super important.
Yep.
But also they don't, you know, they don't know what half the buttons do, and they don't know how to do the things they want to do. And like right now I'm working with an IT company, IT team inside a large healthcare company, and their executives come every day. It's like, hey, I need this data in this report in this format. And they pay $30 a month for Copilot, and they can do that, but they don't know how to start because Microsoft doesn't, you know, they won't bring, they'll bring the horse to the water, but they don't necessarily tell them all the tricks and the tips and all that. And so like, you know, I'm just going through their program. I'm like telling them like, oh yeah, you don't need to pay for these 4 different products. You just do in this product and do the thing you want to do with the prompt, right? And it's just kind of like, oh, like Occam's razor. Like
Yeah.
I sometimes I talk people out of using AI at all, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'm not, you know, I'm not selling Azure anymore. You know, I'm not selling Google Cloud, and it's just like, yeah, man, use the AI to learn what the script is, and then once the script is in place, fire the AI.
Yeah.
And because the thing that AI can't do is the thing that everyone's having problems with, and that's why it hasn't done what it did. Because if you spend $10 billion on a model, you need to own people's entire life to make that ROI pay off, right?
Yeah.
And and the thing is, like, without the data of the users, those models are useless.
Yeah.
So like, I think consumers have that upper hand in these things, right? Because all they need to do is wait these people out and figure out that, like, oh yeah, technology is getting cheaper, and you know, you know, everyone got so hyped up on Bitcoin and all that stuff. Now the computers can run models that can run your business.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like instead of, you know, all these kids who grew up like souping up their computers for
Yep.
Xbox type
Yeah.
game scenarios, they know how to make an AI computer now, and eventually someone's going to make it where it just comes with the OS. And when you boot up the OS, it's just a chat window. And
Nice.
when you talk to it, you're like, hello, you know, like, you know, you get to just say, what do you like to do? And it's like, well, I need to send emails. And so it built emails, you know, like from there, like, you know, and I think like, and then once you have this profile, which you own, you take your key, you go to a new hotel, and it has a computer, and you put the key in, and it's everything like it was at home, and it'll convert like, oh, I got to find the thermostat, you know, I got to find where they do laundry. It's like, oh yeah, it's, you know, everything you like to do. And I think, you know, being able to like, you know, just like I have an iPhone, right? And then, you know, I should just be able to go anywhere and just put it down and start working, right? Like, and, you know, I shouldn't have to have 6 devices and cloud services and all that. And I think we're kind of like at this point, but you're going to have to like step one step away from the people building these tools, because their investors want them to bring everyone along for the ride, you know, and
Yes.
they keep telling us like, oh yeah, we're going to have to fire people, or there's going to be less people. It's like, no, there's going to be less CEOs. There's going to be less middle management, right? Because we won't need to like, you know, work with everything machines anymore, because, you know, we just use what we need and we don't use what we don't need.
So, um, for the listeners that are interested, because we don't normally, the
Mm,
people that we're bringing on the show typically are non-technical. I'd say 80% of the people are
sure.
non-technical, right? And some of the things that you've described to me, I totally understand, but because
Yeah.
I don't have the tech background, I would have never
Mm,
thought to, uh, like,
yeah.
to leverage the capabilities in the manner in which you've done that. And there's be some people that are listening that are particularly interested in this. Oh yeah, we don't need
Mm,
all the buttons. Can you
yeah.
help us, get the version we
Yeah.
need or whatever? So for those who wanted to find out more about what you're doing at Toilville, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah, you can reach us on the web. We just registered a new domain called People Make It Better, because
Nice.
we think they do. Like all the tooling that we recommend, at the last mile, there's a person who clicks yes or no, right?
Yep.
And so we are on summer break, but we start doing office hours again in the fall, and that's just like like kids stream on Twitch, I stream on LinkedIn, answer questions about things, and my calendar is on the website. So if you want to book or you have a question, feel free to send it in. And also, like when you're playing with ChatGPT, instead of asking your question, ask it what you're trying to do and what tools it would use to do it. And that was the half the thing that got me through it, because it's like I started explaining to the chat like what I did, and they're like, well, you can do this with, you only need
it this way.
Yeah. You only need A and D of that chain. And if you did this, I was like, oh, okay. So like, I think people kind of like, they get in these holes like, oh man, I have a Slack and I have a OneNote and I need to get them to talk together to review the Figma. And you just like start searching for, how would I do the thing I want to do without brand loyalty? And you'll find yourself making these same kind of, connections and tooling, and get down from 3,000 apps to 12 apps,
I'm actually going to try that. Well, Peter, thank you so much. Good luck. I'm a fellow founder, and I can tell you that until it starts working, it sucks. Not the whole time, but you earn your seat at the table, let's say,
Thank you.
So, you've got a lot of exciting times ahead of you. And with what you're doing, I have no doubt that, and with the velocity at which you can iterate, because of your past, the 25 years you spent, and the new tools, I think we're going to be seeing some pretty cool stuff coming from you. So awesome. And your LinkedIn profile, I'm actually going to start catching some of those live.
Yeah.
It's going to be in the show notes. We're going to include that. So anybody listening, I can tell you, I've interviewed a lot of people, talk to people every day about this stuff. The stuff that I heard today with the way that Peter's thinking about this, is doing something we call thinking AI. There's no question, where it's like every decision's being made. How can the models help me? How can the models make this better, faster? But his unique skill set, like his background, certainly qualifies him to bring solutions that your typical quote unquote AI consultant, I just don't know that they would be able to think in the way that he's doing with the experience he's got to be able to apply those solutions. So let's pay attention to Peter and as he grows Toilville. So awesome, buddy. Thank you so much for your time, Peter.
Cool.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks for having me on.
Episode. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Using AI at Work. Don't forget to subscribe for more conversations about how to use AI at work. And a special thank you to our sponsor, Chief AI Officer, for empowering businesses with AI education and training. Visit their website for a free AI readiness assessment and AI strategy guide to help you get started using AI at work. That's www.chiefaiofficer.com. Special thanks to our producer, Evan DeSaulnier, for making this episode possible. Follow us on Twitter at the handle Using AI at Work, and visit www.usingaiatwork.com for free resources to help you harness AI in your role.